MESHRM members, welcome back. And we have been connecting to you and we have been interviewing some great HR personalities. And today we are here at University of Dubai. And Dr. Arun Prasad has been kind enough to give us a time. And Dr. Arun Prasad, whom you all know, Dubai HR community people, he is chair and director and for the Center of Research and Consulting for University of Dubai, and he has been kind enough to give us some time for us to talk about before the HR Majlis, which is going to come up on 26th of August, on his topic, and something more we will dwell upon today, that how paradigm shift is happening in HR, and he's going to also take us through his thought process about the emerging trends in HR. Welcome, Dr. Arun Prasad.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much for that generous introduction.
The first topic, I was very interested and very inquisitive in your topic with this paradigm shift, and the most important part is HR and emerging trends. So the first thought is, how do you visualize that? How did you come out with this topic of paradigm shift for HR and emerging trends?
Well, HR has been always very close to my heart right from the time that I started my career, right? And I can say that it's in my DNA as well. Yeah. All right. See, now the business scenario is changing dramatically, the way we look at, especially HR. Not just HR, I'm talking about the whole business scenario. The world is moving towards AMBIC model, right? So what is that AMBIC model? We talk about A for artificial intelligence, M stands for machine learning techniques, and B, big data and data science, and I, Internet of Things, and C, cloud technology, right? Irrespective of any function within the organization, right? So now this is going to become part and parcel of any function within the organizations, right? Any function for that matter has to be prepared how they're going to get adapted to this new technology, right? And for that matter, HR is going to do what it's supposed to do, right? And not what they are perceived to do, the administrative kind of work.
That's right.
Because all those administrative and transactional work is going to be taken over by the advancement in the technology.
Absolutely.
That's what I call the paradigm shift. So now HR is going to play a major role in contributing to the business and take to the next level.
That's right. Thank you for your ideas. Dr. Arun, there are a couple of thoughts which were coming in our mind, and there are a lot of discussion which was going on in HR community about how the HR is shifting, what you call it, the paradigm shift, from the transactional or administrative function or transactional function, which we call it, to the strategic aligned with the business. Now, when we're talking about in today's scenario, this scenario is volatile, it's turbulence time, economic slowdown. These tough times, HR has to do something more than that. And when it comes to retaining the Gen Next, which is our topic for this HR Majlis, that how do you retain this Gen Next and create an happy environment and align them to become the productive force for the business. Now HR is facing a lot of challenges in that. So how do you see that in this volatile, changing economic condition which the organization is facing? How the HR professionals need to change, which you call it a paradigm shift?
Great, that's a great question, and I would say that's one of the questions which I'm going to talk about in detail in the forum, but I can give you a snapshot of that at this point in time. So Gen X people, yes, of course, considering the business scenario now and what we are expecting from this Gen X is something more. Rather, I would put it this way: the Gen X folks they're people with more energy. The more energy, and I would also say these people expectations are much more than what the organization thinks.
Yes.
Right. So we need to deal with the expectation of these people. At the same time, we have to carry out the business as usual.
That's
Right. So when you talk about these people, retention becomes a bigger issue. How are we going to retain these people in today's scenario? Right. There are very many ways in which we can engage these people. And actually, in my current position, what I'm doing now currently, I'm dealing with these people every day, day in and day out. Right. Years back, I was on the other side, right? But now I'm with these people, trying to prepare them to adapt to the corporate environment. So that way, I think I'm doing the justice to what is required for these people. And coming back to your other part of your question, how HR folks have to get adapted to the emerging change, the paradigm shift, what we're talking about, right? The HR folks have to sort of step out of the routine, right? So because today we are caught up with those compartments within the HR, right? I would say rather going back to the Dave Aldrich thought on don't get compartmentalized yourself in HR, right?
That's right.
It's rather come out of HR, be connected with business, right? And interestingly, even this business partnering concept is sort of now getting outdated,
Yeah.
right? So we have to think much more than the business partnering. Right? Very recently, I come across about this particular thing. What I'm going to talk about now is stop talking to your employees, rather start talking to your customers
Yes.
as HR people.
Yes.
So that's going to be the buzzword now. Know the business in and out. How? Talk to customers. Go reach out to them. Think about what they have to sort of looking at the organization. Get those right answers. Get the answers back to the organization. And then communicate with your business leaders and say, hey, listen, this is what the customers are expecting from us and how we're going to prepare our people. So this is the step what we need to take as HR folks, and that's going to be the paradigm shift. And technology is going to play a major role in that.
As an enabler or
As an enabler.
Yes.
But remember, technology is not the only drive towards that,
Yes.
right? It's a shift of the HR mindset.
So I think so. And then how about the grooming and nurturing and retaining of these Gen Next? So what all things you feel that how the HR professionals must change their thinking from the typically a transactional environment which we have seen over a period of time, where we have seen HR folks is seen to manage time and attendance and do a birthdays engagement. From total, I've seen a couple of HR professionals whom are extremely contributing members in the business, and we have seen them, they are actively part of the board meetings and decision-making process. Now, while doing so, what happens is specifically for the Gen Next population, the retaining, attracting, managing their expectation falls on the shoulder of only HR. So now the things are changing now, and I believe the retaining, managing, therefore the entire life cycle of this young Gen Next workforce lies not only in HR, but also on the other stakeholders in the organization. So what's your take on from the paradigm shift from the Gen X point of view for accountability of retaining this workforce not only by the HR professionals, but also by the entire stakeholders in the organization?
Yeah, actually, like you put it very nicely in a way that it's just not the HR's responsibility, right? It's the responsibility of the organization as a whole, which cut across all the stakeholders within the organization. Just to give you an example on this one, so very recently I've been interacting with like one of the rather I would say an intern who got into a company, and he or she was really good at what he or she is doing. But apparently he is having a feeling that he's caught up with day-to-day work, as in he can contribute more, but the organization is delimiting to give only a portion of work and not the complete work, right? In a way that he can offer to the organization more than what is given to him. So that way he or she gets both. Right? So then this puts me back to a different thinking, right? Are we still operating in the same way that we look at people, or are we trying to look at people of this generation compared to people of yesteryear generation? So this shift of thinking should take place from the top management, I would say. Top management responsibility is more in this part of, I mean, especially in this case. These days, as you know, organizations even started looking at hiring people based on the skill sets,
Yep.
right? This change is already happening from organizations, and these organizations, I would say, those Fortune 100 and Fortune companies that they're talking about, right? But this takes time to cascade down to the organizations in the region and globally.
So you're talking
Right.
about the culture now.
Culture, so the hiring pattern, so how are we going to hire people, right? So it's just not about based on where they've worked or where they have gotten their degree from, it's also about the skill sets. So which is what people of this generation is capable of offering more, right? If you're going to talk about that particular aspect, then we are, in a way, we are motivating people to come and join for the skill set what they have, right? And not only that, so we have to come out of the conventional way of moving people from one level to another level in terms of number of years. You have to spend like 2 years, 3 years in a particular role. Rather, move it in a different way, because as you know, organizations are moving away from objective-based performance management to subjective-based performance management.
Yes, that's right.
So we're getting away with those
Yes.
normalization
yes,
curve and
yes,
all of
yes.
that, right? So
That's long gone with the bell curve and all. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when organizations are like far-sighted with those new emerging concepts that we are talking about, we need to also have a way to accommodate these Gen X people, right, within the culture of the organization, to get them fast career move, right? Fast career move. Okay, I have given this role for this guy and observe him carefully, right? So for some time, and if he's excelling more in that particular role that's been given to him, give him additional task. As in, don't think about increasing the breadth of the job. Increase the depth of the job. When I say the depth of the job, it means more thinking, critical thinking. Is he
Enrich
capable-
it, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but the organizations, I feel that somewhere they get stuck in increasing the breadth of the job, right? So you have to classify people whether the person is capable of handling the breadth or the depth.
Yeah.
Accordingly, you have to manage these people.
Yeah. One more thing, Doctor. I've seen that, one of the reason why this Gen X, their expectation gets somehow not get, met in certain environment is we put a lot of values, we put a lot of visible cultural aspect of that in the walls of the companies, in the website, social media. And the moment this Gen X comes with a full enthusiasm, full of expectations, they'll end up in a X, Y, or Z organization. Then there's a lot of delta between what is actually practiced in the organization and what is visible all around. So that's the first cultural shock that the Gen X goes. And then after that, the ripple effect continues, the whiplash effect continues, and it goes on. And and after 6 months and all, I've seen it. Within 6 months, the Gen X starts getting totally disconnected from the role. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, so this is again a lot of shift in terms of how we're going to approach these people, right? That the organization has to visualize in the long run. For that matter, I would say even organizations have to sort of about there's something called the probation period, what they have conventionally, right? So, I don't know why people even talk about it even now, right? So because you're taking people for certain reasons, and having the probation is something which is actually putting people down, sometimes, right? And especially people of Gen X, they don't like it, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is, because of the culture shock, some people start being productive from day one. And some people are literally taken back. And by the time the person comes back to normal, you're talking about the probation period.
Yes.
Right? And that's where the confusion happens between the expectation of the organization and what we expect from the person who we onboarded 2 months or 3 months ago. Right? So we have to go softer on those policies, basically. Again, it's a top management commitment is what we're talking about, right?
And I think so the hand-holding by each of the line managers
Line.
and the stakeholders. It is not the HR person, you know,
No,
who's
it's a top
accountable and
management.
responsible for the entire probation period, which is
Exactly.
generally what the management thinking is.
Exactly. So this is what I put it in a very simple way. It's a top management commitment, so
Yeah.
which is responsibility of the people who are the decision makers in the organization, right? So HR again can facilitate those decisions,
Yes.
but he or she can't take the larger decision,
Yeah.
right? So coming back to the point of these people, how we are going to get them onto the hook of being productive amidst of these cultural things that they are seeing, right? As you know, these days organizations do have very flexible work culture, right? So when I say flexible work culture, I'm talking about, and it's not that anytime you walk in and anytime you walk out, right? It's all about giving the job and trying to see how the job is accomplished, right? I can do the job anywhere in the world, right? I can sit in my home or anything, but all that it requires is whether the job is accomplished or not. So I think that the shift should go away from desk-based expectation to mobile-based expectation. When I say mobile, I'm saying you should think of the workforce being mobile.
That's right.
You don't expect the person to come and sit in your office and say, "Good morning, sir. How are you doing?" And don't expect this every day, right? Of course, you have to expect this, but given the fact there's a task to be accomplished, allow these people to do on their own. And if you have to look at those technology-based companies that we are talking about, you know, some of those top-notch ones, they do have this to overcome this culture shock,
Yeah.
right?